Imagine a library that doesn't have walls, doesn't have a roof, or even wheels. Imagine it walks to you across heat, dust, and open scrubland, carrying books on the backs of camels. Yes, this isn't a fairy tale. This happened in real life. Hi, my name is Florence, and welcome back to the One More Book podcast channel. So, I recently read Dust by Yvonne Adhiambo Owuor. I did a review on it in a previous video. You can watch that. And it inspired this video because I read about something that she talked about that I'd totally forgotten that existed. And this is one of the ways that the Kenya National Library Service provided mobile libraries in Kenya back in the 90s. This was a real public service in Kenya. It was called the Camel Library Services, run by the Kenya National Library Service. So this is the department of the government that provides library services to individuals, to the country, to the citizens. And we have different libraries in most major towns or cities in the country. There used to be a public library. I am not sure how that situation is at the moment. So back in the 1990s, Northeastern Kenya, which is semi-arid area, faced a huge access problem. Communities were spread out. It was difficult to navigate the area because the roads were almost non-existent. Many families were semi-nomads or pastoralists, and these are people who move from one place to another with their livestock in order to find water and grazing for their animals. So the Kenya National Library Services had library in towns like Garissa. Garissa used to be the major town in this area. But what they realized is many families were having difficulties getting to the library, which meant they had to walk really long distances through very harsh terrain in order to get access to the books and to the library services. So the Kenya Library Services decided to come up with a very brilliant idea. So instead of asking readers to come to books, they sent books to the readers, which I feel is how services should be offered. Like, you should listen to what the community needs and provide them, meet them at their point of need. So the library service was launched in Garissa in October of 1996, operating roughly a 50 to 20 kilometers radius from the Kenya National Library Garissa branch, which was the main branch that they had in this area. And because it worked, the Kenya National Library Services replicated it in Wajir, which is also a major town in this area, launching there on I think around April of 1999. So this service wasn't only benefiting one group. According to the Kenya National Library Service, the Camel Library served school children, adult learners, social workers who are involved in community initiatives, retirees, and even refugees who were living in these regions. So that range matters because it shows that the Camel Library wasn't a novelty. It was a community-informed lifeline that the community really needed. So what made it successful? These are the reasons why it was successful. First, it met the people where they needed or where they were. When the camels arrived, the librarians will set up a temporary reading space. They will put mats on the ground and the books will be unpacked and the community gathered around to read and to pick out books. Secondly, it was scalable within the local reality. Camels are well suitable for these arid environments and can reach areas that vehicles at that time couldn't get to, or there could be struggle for vehicles to get to these places. And unlike vehicles, of course, camels don't require fuel, something that is widely noted in reporting on the service, because fuel, we all know, sometimes there's lack of fuel, there's not enough funds, so the camels could still perform this service because they did not need fuel. So another thing that made it a success is it created reading demand. Coverage of the program describes strong interest, especially from the children and the communities that participated in the library's arrival. And there was increased engagement with reading, where books were previously scarce. They answered a need. There was a need for books. There was a hunger, there was a thirst. And by offering this service, this hunger or this thirst was quenched. And importantly, Kenya National Library Services itself calls the Garissa model successful enough that it expanded into Wajir. So for something to expand, it shows that the original model was a success. But the Camel Library didn't stop because it failed. Towards the early 2000s, it stopped. But it stops because conditions changed and because the system was expensive and demanding to run. So the Kenya National Library describes several key challenges. Number one was camel maintenance. The camels got sick. Number two, it was very labor intensive. Staff and the camel handlers traveled under very high temperature, which made the work really, really exhausting. And number three, of course, the cost. These challenges made it expensive to run, to be sustained for a long time. And then, of course, came a big shift, which was the next phase to replace the Camel Library service. Road networks improved in the region with better roads. So the Kenya National Library Service says that it discontinued the Camel Library services and replaced it with a different mobile model. Also, they said that as access improved, more people could travel to Garissa, to the main library on their own, reducing the need for camel-based delivery services. So the Kenya National Library Services states that when the camel service was discontinued, it explored or it was replaced with motorbike services. So now they use motorbikes, though there are still some towns that use donkeys. So that is also another idea because donkeys are also survive in semi and arid regions. The running cost for donkeys are less than those of camels. So they also mentioned that the transition with schools adopting institutional membership, allowing them to bring large batches of books, around like 200 books to schools for the pupils to then read at a go. So that is also a way that they transformed this service. So here are some lessons that we can learn from the Camel Library service, especially for anyone who is working in education or in public policy or in development or just in community services. Number one, the Camel Library worked because it matched local reality, distant terrains, movement patterns, and limited infrastructure. So it actually looked at the place where it was going to perform and adjusted to it. Like, this is what is already existing, and this is how we can use what is already existing to match the reality of the locals. Then Garissa already had books. So the problem was that the people couldn't reach them easily. So the Camel Library proved that distribution is often the real barrier. These books are there. It's just how to get to the children, to get to the people who need them. And then ending the Camel service did not mean that it failed. It meant that the region evolved. Better roads enabled new models like motorbike delivery. And then the program faced real operational constraints: animal health, extreme heat, and high ongoing costs. A great idea must be fundable, must also be maintainable, and also safe for staff. The replacement wasn't one thing, it became a mix. So motorbikes, outreach, and school institutional borrowing, and also improved travel to the branch library. That's a blueprint for modern service library. Multiple access points, not a single perfect solution. The Camel Library service reminds us that literacy doesn't only grow in classrooms, it grows wherever stories can reach people. Sometimes the most powerful innovation isn't a new app, sometimes it's a camel carrying a box of books, showing up anyway. Let me know in the comment section, have you ever heard about this service or maybe any other mobile library service? What's the most incentive way that you've seen or you've heard of people bringing learning to remote communities? I would love us to have this conversation. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and to subscribe. See you on the next one. Bye.